What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
We're at Martinsville Speedway this week. I'm excited. I know it's one of your favorite tracks.
Oh, yeah, I love this track. I don't know if I can say it's my favorite because there's some dang good tracks on there. Talladega, Daytona, road courses that are fun, but I love short track racing. This is one of the best, if not the best. I love the dirt race, but I'm glad this is not dirt because we're going to see some great action, I think, on this track.
Yeah, you brought up the dirt race. We talked about that in our full podcast, which you can go check out. Links above us right now. Then we really want to dive into it, let you know what we're looking at here. We're going to go into our impact scores, which basically, you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we wanted to kind of summarize a lot of the data that we interpret with these drivers. We look over. It can be hard to, we can throw a lot of numbers, but a lot of times it just kind of gets confusing. So we kind of went old school. We were 1 to 10, rate them. And when we say it's our impact score, it's like what we think their impact on the DraftKings side of it's going to be. Obviously, the higher the DraftKings impact, the more impact in the race it's having. But we think it will help you build lineups, especially if you're a little bit more in a time crunch or don't know that much about the sport. I think this will be helpful. We show you my score, your score, and then our score as a team. So it's I think it's going to be useful for a lot of people.
Well, let's jump right in. The race preview. We've got the race guide available down below, which covers everything we're about to talk about. Starting with the race preview, number of laps, 500. There's a lot of laps available. That means there's a lot of potential performance points available. That's laps led and fastest laps. There's 350 available at this race. The stages are 130, 130, and 240. So we got a longer last stage like typical. There's a competition caution at lap 60. That's going to be kind of a strategic thing to take a look at. The previous winner here, Chase Elliott. So, want to jump into everything that we're getting ready to talk about, and we can start at the top of the list, I would imagine, with Martin Truex. Starting at the salary, $12,000. It's a hefty price tag starting 7th, but he's got a lot of experience here.
He's got a lot of experience. Yeah, but I would say it's more about the success because he's the top driver the last 6 overall races. But one thing we do highlight in the full episode of the podcast is the difference between his performance in the spring and the fall. We're both still high on him, even with this price tag, because he is running so good. He's already got a win, and his team just seems to have momentum. And coming into a track where he is really good, gotta like him. But I'm actually at a 7 overall out of 10, whereas you're at an 8.
Yeah, I gave him an 8. I think just with where they're at this season with his recent success and his success here overall, I think he could potentially pay off that price tag with the ability to lead some laps and have some fastest laps in there. It's going to take a little bit, but starting 7th, he does have that a little bit more PD upside than a few of the guys that we're going to be talking about.
I think I don't want to speak for you, but for me, this was the toughest. The next guy on the list, Kyle Larson, 11,700. This was probably the toughest guy for me to really rank at this track. Track history is not good, but he is outperforming his track history so far this year with this new, better equipment. Even saying all that, I'm still at a 6.
We both gave him a 6 because we're just unsure about his ability here based on some performance.
And he's starting 19th, and that's crazy. That's a ton of PD upside, and we're still only at a 6.
Because of where he's starting, there's going to be cars and things in the mix that wouldn't be there necessarily if he was at the front of the pack. We talked about that in the podcast. Definitely something that's a little bit of a concern, but you still want to have some exposure, in my opinion.
The defending champ and previous winner, you already mentioned, Chase Elliott comes in next, 11,400. He starts 5th. We're a little higher on him. I'm surprised that at least one of us wasn't higher. I'm at a 7. We're both at a 7 here. That's a pretty good score, and he will be in several of my lineups. I really do like Chase here. I'm just surprised that we're not as high on him as some of the other drivers.
Well, the last 6 races, his average finish is 10th. He does have better success here last year, obviously. I just don't know if they've got everything together yet. I haven't seen that throughout the season. They're definitely progressing. They're going to be solid. I'm not worried about them over the long haul like we've talked about. This just doesn't seem a place where I'm 100% confident, and with that price tag, just a little bit hesitant.
Someone we are not hesitant on is the next guy, Brad Keselowski. He comes in at 11,000. What's his starting position? He's starting 10th?
He's starting 10th.
10th. He is 10th. So he does have some PD upside. And for me, he's one of my top drivers this week. I got him at a 9.
Well, you talk about the statistics, and it jumps off the page. Every single stat you look at, any way you look at it, Brad Keselowski's either at the top or towards the top in every category. Very consistent, very just Team Penske as a whole. We talked about in the podcast how consistent they've been. Him and his teammate right below him are just this year even having great success.
Oh, and just to kind of highlight Brad and his success, let's just look at what he does in the first race of the year here, typically in the spring. The last 5 races here, his average finish is 4th. He has all top 10s, and he is averaging almost 60 fastest laps and 113 laps led average. That is insane, and he is at the top of the board as far as driver rating, almost 120 driver rating. That is impressive.
He's somebody I'm going to have a lot of exposure to, especially giving him an impact score of 9. We both gave him an impact score of 9. We're both really high on him. I think he could be a difference maker this week. I think a lot of people are going to be on him as well.
Yeah, so you're going to be contending with some other people with Brad. So
good cash game play.
I think we'll see exactly how it all plays out, but I'm probably going to be structuring most of my lineups around Brad. So it's going to be a combination of the guys we've already talked about and the guys we're about to talk about. That's how good I feel about Brad this week. I just hope it doesn't bite me. We'll see. You want to take over the 10K range?
Yeah, so Joey Logano, 10-7. He's starting on the pole. I'm not super high on him, and I alluded to it in the podcast because sometimes he tends to fail or fall a little bit later in the race. This race, he doesn't have anything he's great and consistent, just not up to what I'm looking for. And starting on the pole, there's just not as much upside. He can get out and be dominant. I just don't know if it's there this week.
It is tough. What are you giving him?
I'm giving him a 7. I'm going to have exposure. I want him, especially in GPP situations. He's not a cash game play for me.
I'm at an 8, and I understand the slighter hesitancy because I know you will be playing them too. But the competition caution comes at lap 60. Now, there's likely to be an incident before then, but let's just say there's not and they run at 60 laps. I think Logano's going to get out front and lead those 60. He may even come out of the pits first and then lead a good bulk of that first stage. And then if he does what you talked about where he fades back, he's already bagged enough performance points that it's still worth it. It could still pay off. He might even still make optimal if he can hang out, the top 10. It's still a little risky, but I do have him at an 8.
Well, you have that scenario. I have the scenario where Denny Hamlin gets out and wins, or not wins, but necessarily he does lead quite a bit and gets those performance points that you're looking for Logano to get. I think this is a prime example where let's unlock a little nugget where Denny Hamlin has 5 wins here. I think the consistency throughout this season and the ability to have that success in recent years here at this track just lends itself to being in a prime spot. The price tag is 10-4. I like him a lot.
So you have him at an 8.
I have him at an 8.
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from, and I won't be surprised if it plays out that way. I just don't like him starting on the outside row. There's some going to be, I mentioned it in the podcast, Ryan Blaney's starting behind him, unless, of course, tech issues. I don't think he's going to be helping Hamlin get out front of Logano. So that's why I'm a little bit less. I think Hamlin will likely get another top 10 and another solid day for his team. I think they'll walk away, pretty satisfied. I have him at a 6.
Ryan Blaney's next on the list. You just mentioned him, 10-1, starting 4th. We're both pretty high on him. Gave him impact scores of 8. Again, we alluded to Team Penske's experience here and just being able to have solid finishes. I think he's in a great spot starting 4th. The price tag's not too high. He can be in a position to get some fastest laps and laps led. I like having some decent exposure this week.
He's got good track history, and he's got pretty good performance in the last few races. I really like Blaney. I think you said, but I do have him at an 8 as well.
So the other guy I gave a 9 this week is my guy Kyle Busch. He has let me down a handful of times, but to me,
you, me, and a lot of other people too.
To me, I feel this week is one of the best, I guess, ways to look at Kyle Busch is under $10,000. You don't get that a lot. 9,800, starting 12th. He offers the most place differential outside of Larson this week, and I'm not that high on him. So I'm looking at his stats and just kind of being on the DL a little bit this year to really maybe capitalize.
At most tracks we go, you don't have to look very far down the list to find Kyle Busch's name in the stat sheet. He's good at a lot of tracks, but he is really good here. We'll give the edge to Brad in the spring because he does have 2 wins and a slightly better average finish. But Kyle Busch is right there, just about 2 points lower in the driver rating. So that's not much. He's averaging actually 2 extra DraftKings points over him, and he's leading way more laps led, 130 to 113. So he is really dominant at Martinsville.
You get 2 place differentials and $1,200 price difference between him and Brad Keselowski. That's impactful whenever you're building lineups.
I like him. Did you say you gave him a 9? I'm a little more hesitant because of some of the other stuff we talked about with the more recent history. I'm at an 8. I still really like him, and he'll be in quite a few lineups of mine as well.
Kevin Harvick's next on the list, 9,600, starting 9th. We talked about him a lot in the podcast and how he really hasn't looked the part this year, and we're wondering if he's going to show up. This, to me, isn't the race. He doesn't have the greatest history. I'm kind of hesitant playing him very, very much this week.
Yeah, I actually have him at a 6. I don't know how many lineups he's actually going to make. I'm going to have to probably build a few special ones just for him because overall, I don't think he's going to grade out very well in our projections and in the lineup. So I'm not very high on Harvick this week.
Moving on down the list, we've got Alex Bowman, 9,200, starting 20th. He offers a great place differential. He doesn't have the most solid stats here, but he's shown a lot more speed, a lot more ability this year, which means I'm looking at him a little bit more strongly to potentially finish in a top 10 situation this week.
Yeah, I got him at a 7. I think he's a solid play. You got to play him. I'm sure he'll be fairly highly owned with that PD upside and with that performance. But maybe with people looking at the track history, maybe he comes in a little lower owned than he should. But I do like Alex Bowman quite a bit.
Yeah, I think people will look at Kurt Busch a little bit more potentially this week. He's next on the list, 8,900, 21st, pretty much the same play if you're looking at it. I think, in my opinion, they're really very similar. I'm going to have exposure to both. You've rated Kurt Busch a little bit lower with a 6, as I've got him at a 7.
Yeah, they're very comparable. I just, for as many races as Kurt Busch has run here, recently his stats hasn't blown me away to where I think that he's in a better spot than Alex Bowman. So that's why I'm giving Bowman a slight edge. It is very slight, though. I don't fault anyone for playing Kurt Busch because he is very well experienced at this track and just racing in general.
William Byron, 8,700, starting thirds in a awkward spot. I'm not super high on him, but I gave him a 5 because I'm on the fence. He could be a very sneaky play and have a great finish and really be impactful, or he could just completely ruin everything. GPP target only in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not a safe play in my opinion either. I got him a little bit rated higher. I got him at a 6 because with the speed that he's had and the steps forward that, at least from my point of view, that I've seen this year, going out and just dominating Homestead late in the race, getting that win. I like what I'm seeing. I know he's had a few little issues here and there, and this isn't the best track for him, but I think it's kind of similar to Kyle Larson. It's just kind of he's just outperforming his stats so far. And if he gets out front and leads just really a few laps, he'll pay off that salary and maybe comes in a little lower owned because he, like you said, he's starting third. So,
yeah, the next guy on the list, Christopher Bell, starting 23rd. He's 8,400. He's a guy that's in an interesting spot. He's got the place differential that we're looking for. Not the greatest success here, but he's in better equipment, like we've talked about. He's got to win. Could be a little bit more aggressive. I've got him at a 6. I could be swayed to give him even a 7 because of that place differential. It's just that price tag's a little bit of a hesitant.
Yeah, I'm at a 6 as well. I just don't really know what to do with Bell this week. To me, it's a little bit of an awkward spot. But you got to respect what he's done so far this year too. So I'm at a 6.
Eric Almirola, somebody I know we're both not very high on, just not because of a lot of the same stats we've looked at for other drivers. He doesn't stick out.
But he's starting 31st.
That's the only reason I've given him a 6 is because he has that place differential upside. If he was had a little bit more recent success or success here as a whole, that number would be a little bit more higher. But I'm just not as confident.
Yeah, the track history and what he's done so far this year has not been impressive to me. I'm at a 5, and that's with the decent price tag on that PD upside. I just don't think it really pays out for him this week. So, yeah, I'm at a 5 for Almirola.
Matty D, as somebody we talked about in the podcast for a little while.
We highlighted him.
Absolutely. 7,800 starting 22nd. You want to give some folks some insight on why we gave him 7s?
Well, it mostly just has to do with, he worked his tail off to get to better equipment, and if you look at his stats overall, it's not impressive at Martinsville, but last year in the ride he's in currently, he had 2 top 10 finishes, 7th and 10th. And that's good, and he didn't start up front. His average starting spot was 15.5, so working his way up through. He seems to be really good at short tracks. It's a good track for him. You get nice PD upside from him. Why not? Stack some Matty D? It seems like he's improved. He's kind of gotten out of that hole that he had in the early season. At least I think so. So I got him at a 7. I think he's a solid play this week.
Moving on down the list, we've got Tyler Reddick, 7,500, starting 13th. Both of us gave him a 5, actually. Just that starting position and not having a ton of success or exposure here at this track. It's not like he can't pick it up. I'm just tapping the brakes on him a little bit.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about Reddick. I'm at a 5 as well, as you mentioned. I just think there's better plays. We're actually both like the guy right below him, Bubba Wallace at 7,300. I gave him a 6, and you gave him a 7. You seem to like him a little bit more.
He's starting 25th. He offers that place differential upside that we're looking for, and he has decent experience here in the trucks, and he has exposure now that he's in potentially some better equipment. He's done a little bit better this year. I think he could use everything that he's been able to basically learn throughout the season so far and finish a little bit stronger. Top 15, it looks like we could possibly get him 5X. I like him.
Yep, I get where you're coming from. Another guy, the guy next down below him, 7,100, starting 18th, is a guy that you wanted to spotlight in our main podcast, Austin Dillon. What why? Can you tell the people why we gave Austin Dillon 5s?
Well, we highlighted him more as a cautionary tale because his average finish here over the last 6 races is 25.5. It's just not been a strong track for him. He is doing better or having stronger finishes this year. We went into detail in the podcast about that, but I'm just cautioning people starting 18th, $7,100. There's not a lot of upside, especially with some recent history here specifically.
Cole Custer comes in at 7,000, starting 26th. Nice PD upside. Haven't seen too much from him. Where are we at? We got 6s on him.
Yeah, another guy we agreed on this time, giving him 6s. I think he offers that place differential. He can run in the top 10, but every once in a while it just comes in to bite you at the end. It's unfortunate, but somebody I think we could have some decent exposure to. I don't want to go overboard by any means. Ryan Newman, 6,800, starting 8th, is next on the list, and he is somebody we want to touch on because we gave him low scores. I gave him a 3. You gave him a 4. You want to tell people why?
He's just in a tough starting spot. Starting where he's at in 8th, he's a good driver. He just doesn't have the equipment, and his stats are not very impressive. I mean, he's 13th overall as far as driver rating in the last 5 spring races. That's not terrible, but it's still an average finish of 14.4. You kind of need him to do a little bit besides finish worse than where he's starting. And I just think that's where we're at with Ryan Newman. So that's why I'm at a 4. I guess you're probably thinking it's about the same, if not a little worse.
Yeah, I gave him a 3, basically the same information we were looking at. I just came in a little bit lower on him, starting 8th. It's just not as enticing. There's a lot of downside with him. Basically from here, I think we can just skip a couple drivers and touch on folks that we want to either warn people about or are a little bit higher on than the drivers around them. Chris Buescher's next on the list of folks we want to talk about. He's 6,400, starting 15th. He's been pretty impressive this year. He's had a stint of really good finishes. I gave him...
we both gave him 6.
6.
Yeah.
He's in a weird position starting 15th, but there's a lot of bad cars behind him, so he doesn't have to get through that mess, and he could really have a decent day.
And he's shown some really nice speed this year. And you're going to have some of these cheap guys because you're going to want to play Martin Truex and Chase Elliott and Brad and some of these high-priced guys. You're going to go dumpster diving, and I wouldn't quite say 6,400 is dumpster diving, but it's starting to get close, and you need as much value as you can get around here, and I think he's one of the best plays. So that's why I got him at a 6.
Yeah, and we've got a couple other guys down the list that we want to touch on. I think Suarez and Stenhouse are guys that you want to have sprinkled in, not overly confident in, especially with where they're starting, but they could have very nice paydays based on not having to pass as many cars. Still want to be cautionary there. Ryan Preece is the next guy we'll talk about a little bit. I gave him a 6. I think starting 17th, 5,600. He's in a good spot. He's been fairly consistent, just like his teammate Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I'm looking at him in that price range as somebody that could help unlock some stuff up top, like what you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm a little more hesitant on Preece because it's Preece and he kind of bites you sometimes, but he has been better this year. And as I said earlier, you gotta have some of these bottom guys for value, and I think he offers some decent value. So I got him at a 5.
Somebody I know that we're both a little bit higher on towards the bottom, Corey LaJoie, 5,200, starting 34th. We both gave him 6s on our impact score. He's got some decent stats here and not so good equipment. You want to tell folks why you gave him a 6?
You need value. He's only 5,200, and he's starting. Where is he starting at?
He's starting 34th.
34th. So it's more likely than not that he's going to move up. I don't see him. I mean, he could get in a wreck, but you can't build, in my opinion, you can't build lineups expecting that. I think he can be a top 25 car, which doesn't sound great, but geez, when you start 34th, that's so much upside, a PD upside, and with that price tag, he doesn't have to do that much, and now that allows you to get those top tier guys. So that's why I'm so high on him, and I think that's probably why you are too.
Yeah, and really below him, the only other guy that we would even take a look at would be BJ McLeod, starting 4,900, starting 36th. He's has a lot of experience, not in very good equipment. Starting 36th, second to last place. It doesn't take much for him to gain a few positions.
He's a survivor. He's going to pass those cars that end up wrecking out or getting several laps down, and he just kind of runs his own race. So he offers that upside, and $4,900 again, it just helps you fit these better, more dominant drivers in there.
Well, that sums up what we came to talk about today. Martinsville is going to be getting underway, so we're excited to bring you another race day rundown. We've got a full version of our podcast available. Make sure you check that out if you have time. We're putting in a lot of work and effort every week to provide this content. We were a day short on it this week with the race falling on a Saturday, but if you can, please comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Jeremy, you want to take it away?
You pretty much said it all. We're real thankful that you guys are here watching, and it's important. And I hope you guys are liking the videos. Give us a little feedback. Let us know. But no, there's really nothing else I need to say about Martinsville. I think we've kind of touched on everything, and I'm just ready for this race, man. I love Martinsville under the lights. So let's get to it.